Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video, we will learn about the box model in CSS. All HTML elements can be considered as boxes. The CSS box model can be thought of as a box that wraps around each HTML element. It consists of margins, borders, padding, and the content of the HTML element itself. As you can see, in the center, we've got this content of our HTML element. And outside that content, we have padding. And outside the padding, we have border. And outside the border, we have margin. Let's try an example to understand this box better. Let's add a paragraph. Let's give it some text, say lorem ipsum dolor. Let's copy paste this a couple of times. Let's save it. Let's bring up our live server. And as you can see, we've got this paragraph on the screen. And now when we inspect it, so as you can see, we've got this blue color. So this blue color represents the content of our HTML element. And also, if you can see, we've got this orange color as well. So this orange color, it represents the margin. So by default, paragraph has a margin of 16 pixels for top and bottom. So that's why we see it just on top and bottom. Say if we change it to say 16 pixels all around. And now when we hover, we've got this orange color on all the sides. We don't see any padding here because the paragraph element does not have a padding of by default. So let's add some. Say padding 18 pixels. And now as you can see, we've got this green color outside our blue color. So this green color represents the padding. Let's add a border as well. Say border 5 pixels, solid, and say blue. Let's hover here. And now as you can see, we've got this light blue colored content. And outside that, we've got this green colored padding. And outside that, we've got our border. And outside that, we have the margin. And that's how the box model looks for a real HTML element. Also, let's add a width to our HTML element, say 400 pixels. Also, let's give it a height, say 200 pixels. And as you can see, when we give width and height to an element, it represents the width and height of the content only. And now as you can see, on the bottom left side of the box, we've got the dimension. So it is 446 pixels by 246 pixels. But we gave the height just as 200 pixels. So these extra pixels, extra 46 pixels, it's just when we add padding and border to an element, it adds to the total width and height of the element. So if you see here, we've given a padding of 18 pixels. So padding bottom 18 pixel, padding top 18 pixel, which is 36 pixels. Similarly, we have border bottom and border top, which is 5 pixels each. So 10 pixels that. So 36 plus 10, which is 46. And we give the height as 200 pixels. So 200 plus 46, which is 246 pixels. And that's how our element ended up with a height of 246 pixels. And that's all for today, guys. If there's something that you did not understand, feel free to drop a comment and we will discuss it. See you in the next video. Bye and take care. Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video, we will learn about the box sizing property of CSS. In the previous video, we learned about the concept of box model, how all HTML elements can be considered as boxes. And when we add padding and border to an element, it adds to its total width and height. Now, let's say we have these two elements. As you can see, both of these, they look alike, just that their background color is different. Now let's add a padding to one card. So let's bring this up here. Let's say we add padding to this second card, say padding 32 pixels. Let's save it. And now as you can see, this second card, it looks bigger. And this is happening because we added this padding. Remember that box model concept? That. Let's say we don't want this to happen. So for that, we have another property called box sizing. It accepts two values, border box and content box. The default value is content box. So currently what you're seeing is the content box. So let's try changing the value of box sizing. So box sizing, by default, it is content box. Let's make it border box. Let's save it. And now as you can see, the box size did not increase. So the border box value includes the padding and border in an element's total width and height. Now this has a side effect. Let's check that out. Say instead of these text, we had image here. Let's add a class, say image. Let's give it an image URL. So I've got an image here. Let's just paste it. Let's give it an alternate text, say random image. Let's copy this image tag and paste it for the second one as well. Let's save it. Let's bring up our code editor here. Let's add some styles for this image. So image, say width 100%. So what we are telling here is take the 100% of the width available inside the parent element. All right, so as you can see, the first one is taking the entire width because there's no padding or border in that division. But in the second one, we have given this padding. So it has this empty space on all the sides. Let's try increasing the padding. So instead of 32, we make it 48 pixels. And now as you can see, our image reduced. Similarly, let's try making it say 80 pixels. And again, the size of our image reduced. And this is happening because the total width is fixed to 300 pixels. And we're using box sizing to border box. So it includes the padding also in the width. So when we increase the padding and width is constant, which is 300 pixels, so it just results in reducing the width of image. So that is the side effect of using border box. Say for example, we add the padding here as well. Say padding 32 pixels. Let's save it. And as you can see, the box size increased, but the image remained same. Similarly, let's try increasing it more, say 60 pixels. And as you can see, the box size is increasing, but the image is staying in the same dimension, which is 300 pixels by 300 pixels. So both these values have their pros and cons. There will be times when you will have to use border box, and there will be time when you will have to use content box. That's all for today, guys. If there is something that you did not understand, feel free to drop a comment and we will discuss it. See you in the next video. Bye and take care. Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video, we will learn how to add shadows. CSS provides us with two options to add shadows. One for text and second for all other HTML elements. First, let's talk about how to add shadows to text. For this, we can use the text shadow property. Let's try an example to understand it better. Let's bring up our code editor. Let's say this is the text we've got, HTML5 course. Let's add some stylings. So let's add the text shadow property. So text shadow, and it requires two values, one for horizontal shadow and another for vertical shadow. So let's say 4 pixels by 4 pixels. Let's save it. As you can see, the text and the shadow have the same color, but we can change the color of the shadow. So let's try that. So to add color, we can simply add another value here, say gray. Let's save it. And now as you can see, we've got a gray colored shadow. But it doesn't look very much like a shadow. It looks more like a reflection of our text. It looks very sharp. So let's add some blur. To add blur, we can add another value here, say 2 pixels. Let's save it. And as you can see, that shadow looks a bit blurry now. Let's increase this value, say 4 pixels. And now as you can see, it looks more blurry. Let's increase it to say 10 pixels. And now as you can see, it's so blurry that we can't even tell what's written in that shadow. So the higher this value, the more blurry the shadow. We can add multiple shadows as well. So let's try that. Let's just comment this. All right, so let's give it a text shadow property. Let's say 2 pixels horizontal, 2 pixels vertical, 2 pixels blurry, and let's say the color is red. Let's save it. And now as you can see, we've got this red shadow. Now to add another shadow, we can simply use a comma and give values for the next shadow as well. So let's say 2 pixels, 2 pixels, and 2 pixels blur. Let's say the color is green. Let's save it. And as you can see, the green color isn't very much visible. So let's bring it down. So for that, we can just increase this value. Let's save it. Still not very much visible. Let's increase it a bit more. And now as you can see, all these three colors are visible. That's all for text shadow, guys. Now let's talk about how to add shadows to HTML elements. For that, we have another property called box shadow. This property adds a shadow to the HTML elements box. Let's try an example to understand it better. Let's just comment this. Let's add some more styles, say width 300 pixels, height 400 pixels. Let's give it a border radius 4 pixels, and let's give it a background color, say white. Let's save it. And as you can see, we've got this card sort of structure here. Now let's try using this box shadow property. So box shadow. So just like text shadow, even this box shadow property accepts the horizontal shadow value and the vertical shadow value. Let's save it. And as you can see, we've got this blue shadow around our box or card. Let's try changing the color, say gray. And as you can see, now the shadow is turned to gray. Similarly, to add a blur to it, we can give it a value, say 4 pixels. And as you can see, now the shadow looks a little blurry. If you want the shadow more to come down, so we could say probably 4 pixels. And now the shadow is more on the bottom. And let's say we don't want it on the right, so we could simply do this 0. And as you can see, we've got the shadow around our cards. And the shadow makes our card looks a bit elevated. Similarly, let's try adding a shadow to our top bar. So coming up here, let's give it a box shadow property. So box shadow, and let's give it some values. Say 0 pixels, 2 pixels, say 10 pixels, and let's give it a color, say 888. Let's save it. And as you can see, we've got the shadow coming down from our top bar. It's a bit much, so let's reduce the blur. Let's say 5 pixels, and looks much better now. That's all for today, guys. If there's something that you did not understand, feel free to drop a comment and we will discuss it. See you in the next video. Bye and take care.